Captain Elena Price stood on the bridge of the horizon's edge, staring at the screen in front of her. The readings made no sense. She had been exploring unknown space for 12 years, and she had never seen anything like this. "Run the scan again," she said to her science officer. Lieutenant Jake Morrison looked up from his station. His face was pale. "Captain, I've already run it 3 times. The results are the same." Elena walked closer to his console. The planet on the screen looked beautiful from space. Blue oceans covered most of its surface. White clouds swirled in thick patterns. Green and brown continents broke through the water. It looked like a paradise world, the kind that colonists dreamed about finding. But the numbers told a different story. "The gravity is nearly twice what we're used to," Jake said. He pointed at the data flowing across his screen. "The oxygen level in the atmosphere is 28%. That's dangerous. Everything on that planet would burn faster and hotter than normal." Elena frowned. "What about the weather patterns?" "Extreme. I'm seeing storm systems that would tear apart our best colony structures. The wind speeds in some areas reach 300 kilometers per hour. And look at this." Jake pulled up another display. "The planet has active supervolcanoes, at least 6 of them. The tectonic plates are constantly moving. Earthquakes happen every single day. So it's a death world," Elena said quietly. Jake nodded. "Class 3, at minimum. Maybe worse. No intelligent life could evolve there. It's too hostile." Lisa Harper, the chief engineer, spoke up from her station near the back of the bridge. "Captain, I'm picking up something strange in orbit around the planet." "What kind of strange?" "Debris. Lots of it. Old satellite fragments, pieces of space stations, and what looks like destroyed ships. The metal composition is unusual. I've never seen these alloys in our database." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "How old?" Lisa checked her instruments. "At least 300 years. Maybe older. The radiation decay suggests they've been here a long time. Someone was here before us," Jake said. "Someone built satellites and stations around a death world. Why would anyone do that?" Elena had no answer. She ordered the ship to move closer, to get better scans of the debris field. As they approached, more details became clear. The wreckage wasn't random. Someone had fought a battle here. Weapons burns marked the metal. Hull breaches showed where explosions had torn through ship armor. "Captain," Lisa said suddenly. Her voice had changed. It sounded tight, worried. "I'm reading a massive energy signature on the far side of the planet. It's big. Really big. Show me." The main screen changed. Elena felt her breath catch in her throat. Ships. Hundreds of them. They hung in space in a perfect defensive formation around one of the planet's 3 moons. The vessels were dark and still, like corpses floating in the void. "Are they active?" Elena asked. "Negative," Lisa replied. "No power signatures. No life support. No engine heat. They're dead hulks." "Then what's causing the energy reading?" "I don't know. It's coming from inside the formation, but I can't get a clear scan from this distance." Elena made a decision. "Take us closer, but keep the shields at maximum and prepare the jump drive. If anything moves, I want to be ready to run." The horizon's edge moved forward slowly. The ship's engines hummed softly as they approached the Phantom fleet. Elena counted the vessels as they came into view. Destroyers, cruisers, carriers, battleships. Some were small, built for speed. Others were massive, designed to carry enough firepower to crack a planet. "The design is completely unknown," Jake said. He was studying the ships carefully. "The technology looks advanced, but it's different from anything the Galactic Council uses. Look at the way they've arranged their weapons systems. Everything is optimized for maximum firepower." "What kind of species builds ships like that?" Lisa wondered aloud. They were within scanning range now. Elena could see details on the closest ships. Battle damage marked their hulls. Some had entire sections blown away. Others showed signs of hasty repairs, patches welded over holes. These ships had fought hard before they died. Then every alarm on the bridge started screaming at once. "They're powering up," Lisa shouted. "The entire fleet is coming online." Elena grabbed the arms of her chair. "Get us out of here. Jump drive now." But before Lisa could engage the engines, every weapon on every ship locked onto the horizon's edge. Hundreds of targeting beams painted their hull. The communication system crackled to life. A voice came through, speaking a language Elena had never heard before. It sounded harsh and clipped, like someone barking orders. "Translation coming through," Jake said quickly. His computer was working to decode the message. It says we're in restricted space. It's warning us to leave immediately or be destroyed." "Who's sending it?" Elena demanded. "I don't know. The signal is coming from all the ships at once. It's like they're all speaking with one voice." Elena stared at the fleet on her screen. One of the ships, a destroyer near the front of the formation, was lighting up completely. Its running lights activated one by one. The name on its side became visible: Liberty's Price. Below the name were symbols. A circle filled with stars. Red and white stripes. Markings that meant nothing to Elena but somehow felt important. "Jump drive ready," Lisa said. "We can leave any time." Elena hesitated. Every instinct told her to run. But she had spent her whole career searching for new things, new mysteries. And this was the biggest mystery she had ever found. A Deathworld. An ancient fleet. A warning in an unknown language. "Send them a message," Elena said. "Tell them we mean no harm. Tell them we're explorers from the Galactic Council." Jake worked quickly, using the translation algorithms to convert her words into the unknown language. He broadcast the message toward the fleet. Then they waited. The seconds stretched into minutes. The weapons stayed locked on their ship. The destroyer's lights continued to glow. But nothing else happened. "Captain," Jake said quietly, "I've been analyzing the language. The computer found some fragments in our oldest databases. Historical records from before the Great Silence. I think this might be a human language." "That's impossible," Elena said. "Humans disappeared 500 years ago. Everyone knows that." The Galactic Council chamber was never quiet. But today, it was louder than usual. Representatives from 40 different species argued with each other. Their voices filled the massive dome with a chaos of sounds. At the center of it all stood Captain Elena Price, waiting to tell her story again. Speaker Vinar, an ancient being whose species had been exploring space for thousands of years, finally called for silence. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "We will have order. Captain Price has brought us information that requires careful consideration. We have displaints. We have displaints." Elena stepped forward. She had already given her full report, but the council wanted to hear it again. She described the Deathworld. She talked about the Phantom Fleet. She played the recording of the warning message, and she showed them the symbols she had seen on the destroyer. The circle of stars. The red and white stripes. "These markings match nothing in our databases," Elena said. "Except for one thing. Ancient fragments from before the Great Silence. References to something called Earth. References to humans." A Zafrani delegate stood up. His species was known for being cautious. "This is clearly a dangerous situation. We should quarantine the entire system. Nothing should go in or out. We cannot risk contact with whatever lives on that death world." "But think of the technology," a Korthon representative argued. His species valued military power above all else. "That fleet is huge. If we could study those ships, learn how they work, we could improve our own defenses." The argument started again. Elena stepped back and let them debate. She had done her job. She had brought the information to the council. Now it was up to them to decide what to do next. In a small laboratory far from the council chamber, Dr. Amy Carter was having a much quieter day. She was a xenoarchaeologist, someone who studied dead civilizations and lost languages. The council had sent her the recording of the warning message, and she had been working on it for 3 days straight. Amy played the message again. The voice was strange. It sounded human. if the old recordings were accurate. But there was something wrong with it. The tone was flat, empty, like someone reading words without understanding them. She had fed the message into her translation computers. The results were fascinating. The language was definitely related to something called English. Her database had fragments of it, pieces recovered from old wrecks and abandoned stations. English had been the primary language of humans, a species that had vanished during the Great Silence 5 centuries ago. Amy had always thought humans were just a myth, a story that older species told about a race that had appeared suddenly, spread quickly, and then disappeared without a trace. But now she had proof. The message was real, the language was real, which meant humans were real too. The translation came through slowly. Amy read it 3 times to make sure she had it right. Approach unauthorized. This is Earth Defense Perimeter Station 17. State your intentions, or be fired upon. Humanity does not welcome threats. Earth Defense Perimeter Station. Earth, the home planet of humans. According to the myths, it was supposed to be a gentle world. Moderate temperatures, calm seasons, perfect conditions for intelligent life. But Captain Price's report described something completely different. A nightmare planet. A death world where everything wanted to kill you. Amy wrote her report quickly. She sent it directly to Speaker Venar, bypassing the normal channels. If her translation was correct, then the galaxy faced something unprecedented. Humans were not extinct. They were alive. And they lived on a world so dangerous that no other species could survive there. The council met again 3 days later. This time, the mood was different. Speaker Venar had shared Amy's translation with everyone. The representatives were quieter now, more thoughtful. We must make contact, Venar said. But we must do it carefully. If humans have survived on a Class 3 death world for 500 years, they are not like us. They will be stronger, tougher, more aggressive. We need to approach them with respect, not as conquerors or scientists looking for specimens to study. The council voted. It took hours. But finally they reached a decision. They would send a second expedition. This time, it would include 3 ships. A research vessel for scientific study, a diplomatic cruiser to handle negotiations, and a military dreadnought for protection. Dr. Amy Carter was assigned to lead the research vessel, Endeavour. Ambassador Kyle Foster would command the diplomatic cruiser Accord. And Admiral Patricia Hayes would take charge of the dreadnought, Valiant Shield. They were given clear orders. Make contact if possible. Gather information. But do not engage in combat unless absolutely necessary. The 3 ships traveled together through hyperspace. It took them 2 weeks to reach the system. During that time, Amy studied everything she could find about humans. There was not much. A few fragments of literature. Some technical manuals. Pictures that might have been propaganda. She learned that humans had valued something called freedom very highly. They had fought wars over it. They had written songs about it. When the ships finally dropped out of hyperspace, they were greeted by the same sight that had shocked Captain Price. The death world hung in space like a jewel. Beautiful and deadly, and around its moon, the Phantom Fleet waited in silence. This is strange, the pilot of the Endeavour said. I'm having trouble with the navigation system. Something is interfering with our instruments. Amy checked her own displays. Everything was slightly off. The numbers kept shifting. It was like the planet itself was pushing against them somehow. Medical Bay is reporting unusual readings from the crew, another officer said. People are feeling stressed. Elevated heart rates. Increased adrenaline. Some are reporting aggressive thoughts. Amy felt it too. A pressure in her head. A tension in her muscles. Just being near the planet was affecting them. If this was what humans evolved in, what must they be like? Ambassador Foster sent out his message. Amy had helped him prepare it. The words were simple and clear. They came in peace. They wanted to talk. They meant no harm. 3 hours passed. The Phantom Fleet remained dark and silent. Amy began to think they would receive no answer. Maybe the ships were truly dead. Maybe the warning Captain Price heard had been automatic, a recording left behind by people long gone. Then, one by one, the ships began to power up. It started with the destroyer Liberty's Price. Its lights came on, then the cruiser next to it, then another ship, and another. Within minutes, the entire fleet was active, hundreds of vessels, each one bristling with weapons. Each one pointed at the 3 ships from the Galactic Council. "Shields up," Admiral Hayes ordered. Her voice was calm, but Amy could hear the fear underneath. "All weapons to defensive positions only. Do not fire unless I give the order." The communication system crackled. The same voice from Captain Price's recording spoke. "You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves. Explain why you have disturbed the vigil." Ambassador Foster responded. He gave his name and title. He explained about the Galactic Council. He repeated that they came in peace. The voice went silent. The Phantom Fleet hung in space. Weapons ready. Amy counted the seconds. 60, 100, 200. The tension on the bridge was thick enough to cut. Finally, the voice returned. This time it asked a different question. "What year is it by Old Earth reckoning?" Amy and Foster looked at each other. Old Earth reckoning. That meant humans had used a specific calendar system. Amy searched her database. She found fragments of it. Something about counting years from an important historical event. She did her best to calculate the equivalent and sent the number to Foster. The ambassador broadcast the date. Another long silence followed. When the voice spoke again, Amy heard something new in it. Not quite emotion. Not quite life. But something that had not been there before. It has been 537 years since the collapse. Since the governments fell. Since we were given the final order. One of the Phantom ships broke formation. It moved toward them slowly. Amy watched it approach on her screen. The vessel was scarred from countless battles. Burns marked its armor, but it flew with perfect precision. "They're extending a docking corridor," Foster said. "They want us to come aboard." The inside of the Liberty's Price was cold. Dr. Amy Carter felt it even through her environmental suit. The air was thin. Almost too thin to breathe comfortably. The lights along the corridor were dim, casting strange shadows on the metal walls. "Is anyone else feeling this?" Greg Walsh asked. The security officer's hand stayed close to his weapon, though he had agreed not to draw it. "The gravity is off," Captain Price said. "It's lighter than standard. My suit sensors say we're at about 70% of what we're used to." Ambassador Foster walked at the front of the group. His diplomatic training kept his face calm, but Amy could see the tension in his shoulders. They were walking into unknown territory. Anything could happen. The corridor opened into a larger room. Amy stopped so suddenly that Claire Stevens almost bumped into her from behind. The room was a control center of some kind. Stations lined the walls. Screens showed images of space, of the planet below, of the other ships in the fleet. And the room was full of people. Humans. Real, living humans. They stood at their stations, working quietly. None of them looked up when the visitors entered. They moved with perfect coordination, their hands dancing across controls. Amy watched one woman adjust a display while simultaneously checking 3 other screens. The efficiency was beautiful and terrifying at the same time, but something was wrong. The humans looked pale. Their skin had an unhealthy gray color. Their eyes reflected the light from the screens in a way that reminded Amy of nocturnal predators. They did not speak to each other. They did not need to. Each one seemed to know exactly what the others were doing. "Welcome to Liberty's Price." The voice came from the back of the room. A man stepped forward. He was tall, perhaps 40 years old by human standards, with gray hair cut short. His uniform was clean but worn. His face looked like it had been carved from stone, hard, weathered, old beyond his apparent years. "I am Commander Henry Cross," the man said. His voice was the same one they had heard over the radio. Flat, empty of emotion. You are the first outsiders to board one of our ships in 500 years. Ambassador Foster stepped forward. He removed his helmet, a gesture of trust. I am Ambassador Kyle Foster, of the Galactic Council. We come in peace. We wish to establish communication with humanity. Cross looked at Foster for a long moment. His eyes were strange. They did not blink as often as they should. Humanity. Yes. We are what remains of it. Or perhaps we are something else now. It is difficult to say. Amy could not stay quiet. Her scientific curiosity was too strong. Commander Cross, how is this possible? You've been out here for 5 centuries. No species can survive that long in space. Your supplies would run out. Your equipment would fail. Cross turned to look at her. When his eyes met hers, Amy felt a chill run down her spine. There was something in that gaze that was not quite human anymore. Dr. Carter? I assume? The xenoarchaeologist? How did you know? Your ships broadcast your names and positions when you arrived. We have been listening. Cross walked to one of the control stations. He touched a screen and an image appeared. It showed Earth, the blue and green planet below. To answer your question, we survived because we were designed to survive. Or rather, we were modified to survive. He gestured to the other humans in the room. When Earth entered its final crisis, our governments knew they could not save everyone. Resources were running out. The climate was collapsing. Wars were destroying what little remained. So they made a choice. They selected volunteers from the military. Soldiers, spacers, people trained to follow orders no matter the cost. And they put us in ships like this one. Claire Stevens, the medical specialist, was scanning Cross with her instruments. Amy saw her face go white as she read the results. Commander, according to my scans, you're over 200 years old. That's impossible. Cross nodded slowly. Impossible for a baseline human, yes. But we are not baseline anymore. We were placed in suspended animation. We would sleep for decades, then wake for a tour of duty, then sleep again. The mission was simple. Protect Earth until humanity recovered. Guard the home planet no matter how long it took. But something went wrong, Amy said quietly. Yes. The suspended animation technology was experimental. Each time we woke up, we changed. Our bodies adapted to the void. Our need for food and water decreased. Our lifespans extended far beyond normal. But we paid a price. Cross looked at his hands. We lost pieces of ourselves. Emotions faded. Connections to other people became difficult. We became what you see now. Guardians. Watchers. No longer fully human, but not yet something else. Ambassador Foster spoke carefully. Commander Cross, we detected no transmissions from the planet. No signs of civilization. If you were protecting Earth, what happened to the people you were protecting? For the first time, something like emotion crossed Cross's face. It might have been pain, or perhaps sadness, or maybe just a memory of what those feelings used to be like. They survived, Cross said. Come, I will show you. He led them to a different screen. This one showed a closer view of the planet's surface. Amy saw thick jungles, massive mountain ranges, oceans that seemed to boil with life, and then she saw something that made her gasp. A city. Not ancient ruins, but an active settlement. The buildings were strange, built from materials that looked incredibly strong. They rose from the jungle like fortresses. Walls surrounded them. Watchtowers stood at intervals. It looked less like a city and more like a military compound. There are thousands of settlements like this one, Cross said. Spread across every continent. The people who stayed on Earth did not die. They adapted. They evolved. The planet became more hostile after the collapse. Environmental disasters reshaped it. The gravity increased due to geological changes we still do not fully understand. The atmosphere composition shifted. Predators grew larger and more dangerous, and humanity changed to match it. Captain Price leaned closer to the screen. How many of them are there? Approximately 7 billion at last count. They have been rebuilding. But not in the way the old governments would have wanted. They have become something new, something suited to survive on a world that wants to kill them. Amy thought about the stress responses the crew had felt just from being near the planet. The elevated adrenaline. The aggressive thoughts. If that was what affected them from space, what would the actual surface be like? And what kind of humans could thrive there? We need to make contact with them, Ambassador Foster said. The Galactic Council must know about this. We need to establish relations. I would not recommend that, Cross said. His voice was colder now. The people below are not like us. They are not like you. They are survivors of a death world. They have spent 500 years learning to be the apex predators of the most dangerous planet in known space. They do not trust easily. And they do not welcome weakness. They do not welcome weakness. Greg Walsh spoke up for the first time. Are you saying they're hostile? I am saying they are human in the way humans were always meant to be, before civilization made us soft. They are hunters, warriors, survivors. If you go down there unprepared, you will die. The planet will kill you, or they will. A long silence filled the bridge. Amy looked at the other members of her team. She could see the same thoughts in their eyes. They had come looking for a lost civilization. They had found something far more complicated. Commander Cross, Amy said slowly. You said you were protecting Earth. But from what? If humanity survived down there, why do they need guardians in space? Cross was quiet for a moment. When he spoke, his voice was softer. We were protecting them from the galaxy. From species like yours who might see Earth as a resource to exploit, from threats that might come from the stars. We were the shield. We have been the shield for 5 centuries, and we are tired. You want to end your mission, Ambassador Foster said, understanding dawning on his face. We want to rest, Cross corrected. But we cannot abandon our duty until we know Earth is safe. That is why I am talking to you now. We need a guarantee. A promise from your Galactic Council that Earth will be left alone, that humanity will be allowed to develop at its own pace. In return, we will provide you with information about what happened here, about how we survived, about what we learned. Amy felt the weight of the moment. This was bigger than first contact. This was a negotiation. The landing craft shook violently as it entered the atmosphere. Doctor, Amy Carter gripped her seat harness until her knuckles turned white. Next to her, Captain Price looked calm, but Amy could see the tension in her jaw. Greg Walsh sat across from them, checking his equipment for the 3rd time. This is worse than I expected, the pilot called from the front. The winds are incredibly strong. I'm fighting the controls just to keep us level. Lightning flashed outside the windows. Thunder followed immediately after, so loud that Amy felt it in her chest. The craft dropped suddenly, falling several meters before the pilot regained control. Amy's stomach lurched. Commander Cross was right, Price said. This planet is trying to kill us. They had been given special equipment before leaving the Liberty's Price. Genetic suppressors, Cross had called them. Small devices that would help their bodies adjust to the higher gravity and dangerous atmosphere. Amy had injected hers an hour ago. She could already feel the effects. Her heart was beating faster. Her muscles felt tighter. Everything seemed sharper somehow. Approaching the landing coordinates, the pilot announced. We're coming down near the old research facility. Visibility is poor. The jungle is incredibly thick. The craft touched down hard. Amy's teeth rattled from the impact. The pilot immediately powered down the engines. We're on the ground, but I don't know how long we can stay. The weather is getting worse. Amy unbuckled her harness and stood up. The gravity hit her immediately. She felt like she was wearing a suit made of lead. Every movement required more effort than it should. How did humans live in this every single day? They opened the rear door of the craft. The smell that rushed in was overwhelming. Plants, animals, life so thick and vibrant that it seemed to pulse in the air. The oxygen level made Amy feel dizzy. Everything seemed brighter, more intense. "Stay close together," Greg said. He had his weapon drawn now. "Remember what Commander Cross said. Everything on this planet is dangerous." They started walking toward the coordinates Cross had given them. The jungle pressed in from all sides. The trees were massive, their trunks as wide as the landing craft. Vines hung down like cables. Flowers the size of Amy's head grew in clusters, their colors so bright they hurt to look at. Something moved in the undergrowth. Amy spun around. "What was that?" "I don't know," Price said, "but it was big." They kept moving. The research facility was supposed to be only half a kilometer away, but the journey felt endless. Every step was a struggle against the gravity. Every breath of the oxygen-rich air made Amy's head spin slightly. She understood now why humans from this world would be so different. Living here would forge you into something harder, stronger, more aggressive. A sound erupted from the trees to their left, something between a roar and a scream. Greg raised his weapon. "Contact! Something's coming!" Creatures burst from the jungle. They moved on 4 legs, but they could have been anything. Wolf, bear, lizard. They combined the worst features of all 3. There were 6 of them, working together like a trained unit. Pack hunters. Greg fired. His energy weapon struck the lead creature in the chest. It stumbled, but did not fall. The blast that should have killed it only seemed to make it angry. "Run!" Price shouted. They ran toward the research facility. Amy could see it now, a structure built into the side of a mountain. The entrance was maybe 100 meters away. The creatures chased them, gaining ground despite the weapons fire Greg kept sending backward. Amy's legs burned. The gravity was too much. She was not going to make it. One of the creatures was almost on her. She could hear its breathing, smell its scent. Then something flashed past her, a blur of motion too fast to follow. The creature behind her let out a yelp of pain and fell. More blurs appeared. They moved through the jungle like ghosts. Amy caught glimpses. Humans. Real surface humans. They carried weapons made of strange materials. Spears. Bows. Things that looked primitive but clearly were not. They attacked the creatures with precision and coordination that made Greg's military training look clumsy. Within seconds, all 6 creatures were dead. Amy stood gasping for breath, trying to understand what had just happened. The humans who had saved them stepped into view. They were beautiful and terrifying at the same time, tall, at least 2 meters each. Their bodies were muscular in ways that seemed impossible. Their skin was darker than Amy expected, toughened by constant exposure to harsh sunlight. Their eyes were sharp and bright. They moved with a grace that made Amy think of predators. One of them stepped forward. A woman, though she was more powerful than any woman Amy had ever seen. She wore clothing made from animal hides and plant fibers, practical and tough. Weapons hung from her belt. Scars marked her arms and face. "You are weak things," the woman said. Her voice was deep and rough. The English she spoke was heavily accented but understandable. Soft and small. "How did you survive landing here?" Captain Price recovered first. She straightened despite the gravity. "We are visitors from the Galactic Council. We came to make contact with humanity." The woman looked at them with an expression that might have been amusement. "Humanity. Yes. We are what remains. I am Victoria Kane, Speaker of the Southern Range clans. You have entered our territory. Explain why before we decide whether to let you live." Amy found her voice. "We came because we found your defense fleet. The ships in orbit. We spoke with Commander Cross. He told us about Earth. About what happened. We need to understand." Victoria studied them for a long moment. The other humans with her stood ready, weapons in hand. Amy realized they could all be dead in seconds if Victoria gave the order. These people were not civilized in the way the galaxy understood civilization. They were survivors, warriors, and they owed nothing to outsiders. "The sleepers," Victoria said finally. That is what we call them, the ones in the ships above. They have watched over us for longer than our oldest histories remember, but we do not need them anymore. We have survived. We have thrived. This is our world now. She gestured for them to follow. Come. You wish to understand? I will show you. Victoria led them into the research facility. The inside was surprisingly well maintained. The humans had clearly been using it. Data stations were active. Lights worked. Someone had put effort into preserving this place. This was built by the old humans, Victoria explained. Before the collapse. Before the world changed. We use it to study our own history. To remember where we came from. Amy sat down at one of the data terminals. Her training kicked in immediately. She began downloading files, pulling information from the old databases. What she saw made her understand everything. The records told a story of desperation and survival. After the collapse, Earth's remaining population had faced extinction. The climate disasters had made most of the planet uninhabitable. Volcanic activity had increased. Tectonic shifts had changed the very structure of the continents. The gravity had increased through mechanisms the scientists of the time had not fully understood, but humans had not given up. They had adapted. Generation by generation. They had changed. Their bones had grown denser to handle the gravity. Their muscles had become stronger. Their nervous systems had evolved to give them faster reflexes. Their eyes had adjusted to see better in the dim light that filtered through the constant cloud cover, and they had not lost their intelligence. They had kept their ability to plan, to create, to work together. They had developed new technologies suited to their environment. They had learned to use the resources of their deadly world. They had become the ultimate survivors. How many of you are there? Amy asked. 7 billion, Victoria said, spread across every continent. We have rebuilt our civilization, but not in the old way. We learned that the old way led to the collapse. Now we live differently. Stronger. Harder. More connected to the world that made us. Captain Price was looking at a map on one of the screens. It showed settlements across the globe. Cities built into mountains. Underground complexes, floating platforms on the oceans. This is incredible. You've created a whole new culture. We had no choice, Victoria said. Adapt or die. Those were our options. We chose to adapt. And now we are something that the old humans would not recognize. We are the children of the Deathworld. We are what humanity becomes when pushed beyond its limits. Greg Walsh asked the question that had been on everyone's mind. Are you hostile? Do you want contact with other species? Victoria considered this. We are not hostile, unless threatened. We do not fear the galaxy. Why should we? We have survived the worst that nature can create. What could aliens do to us that this planet has not already done? She paused. But we are not ready for contact. Not yet. We have much to rebuild, much to learn about ourselves. Give us time. Perhaps in another century, we will be ready to walk among the stars again. Amy understood. These humans were not the same as the ones who had left Earth 500 years ago. They were a new branch of the species. Evolved. Adapted. Changed by their environment. The data crystals sat on the table in front of the Galactic Council. Small, clear objects that contained information powerful enough to change the galaxy. Dr. Amy Carter had spent 3 weeks organizing everything she had recovered from Earth. Now she waited as the council members reviewed it. Speaker Venar was the first to speak. His old voice carried across the chamber. This is remarkable and troubling. According to these records, humans on Earth have adapted to survive in conditions that would kill any of our species within hours. The bone density alone is frightening. A medical specialist from the Zephrani delegation said, their skeletal structure is nearly twice as dense as baseline human records from before the collapse. Their muscle fiber composition has changed. They can generate force that would require mechanical enhancement for any other species. And their nervous systems, another scientist added, the reaction times recorded here are faster than anything we have measured in nature. They process information and respond to threats in fractions of a second. Ambassador Kyle Foster stood up. He had been quiet since returning from Earth, spending his time writing reports and consulting with experts. Now he had something to say. Council members, we need to be very clear about what we are discussing. These are not the humans from our historical records. They are not the species that disappeared 500 years ago. They are something new. A branch of humanity that evolved under the harshest conditions imaginable. And according to their own statements, there are 7 billion of them. Quote, the chamber erupted in worried voices. 7 billion apex predators from a death world. The implications were staggering. Admiral Patricia Hayes stepped forward. Her military bearing was perfect, but Amy could see the concern in her eyes. I must address the security implications. The Phantom Fleet alone represents a threat. Those ships are old, yes, but they are functional. And they are commanded by individuals who have been soldiers for over 2 centuries. The technology is different from ours, but it is effective. If humans decided to be hostile, we would face a significant challenge. Then we should act now, the Corthan representative said loudly. Before they become stronger. We have superior numbers. We could quarantine the system permanently. Keep them contained. And how exactly would we do that? Captain Elena Price had been invited to speak to the council. She stood now, her voice sharp. I was there. I saw those ships come online. We would lose any military engagement. Those vessels were designed by a species that understood war in ways we do not. And that's assuming the people on the surface do not get involved. Do you really want to fight humans who have spent 500 years learning to survive on a world that actively tries to kill them? The argument continued for hours. Amy listened to it all. She understood both sides. The fear was rational. A species evolved on a death world would be dangerous by any standard, but the idea of attacking them was insane. Humans had already proven they could survive anything. Starting a war with them would only prove who was stronger. Finally, Speaker Venar called for silence again. We are approaching this wrong. We are treating humans as a problem to solve. But they are not a problem. They are a reality we must accept. The question is not whether they are dangerous. Of course they are dangerous. The question is whether they are hostile. Victoria Kane said they were not. Amy spoke up. She said they wanted to be left alone, to develop on their own terms. They are not interested in conquest or expansion. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But can we trust that? The Zephrani delegate asked. Can we take them at their word? Amy thought about her time on the surface. About Victoria, standing at the edge of the jungle, confident and unafraid. About the way the humans had moved, fought, survived. Yes, she said. I believe we can. Because they do not need us. They do not need our technology or our resources. They have everything they need on their own world. Why would they bother with the galaxy when they are still rebuilding their civilization? Commander Henry Cross had been invited to attend the council session remotely. His image appeared on a large screen at the front of the chamber. He looked the same as always. Pale. Tired. Old beyond measure. Members of the council, Cross said. I have a proposal. The fleet and I have guarded Earth for 537 years. We have fulfilled our mission. The people we were sent to protect have survived and thrived. They no longer need us. But we cannot simply abandon our posts. We need a guarantee. A formal recognition from the Galactic Council that Earth is sovereign human territory. That no species will attempt to colonize it, exploit it, or interfere with its development. In return, we will provide technical assistance in understanding human history and culture. We will serve as liaisons between humanity and the galaxy. And we will ensure that Earth remains peaceful. You would become ambassadors, Speaker Venar said thoughtfully, representing a species that has not officially joined the galactic community. We are all that remains of the old humanity. Cross replied. The sleepers, as the surface humans call us. We are no longer fully human ourselves, but we understand both worlds. We can bridge the gap until Earth is ready to speak for itself. The council voted 3 days later. The debate had been intense. Fear struggled against curiosity. Caution fought with wonder. But in the end, logic won. Humanity was not going away. They existed, they thrived, and trying to control them would only lead to conflict. The resolution passed by a narrow margin. Earth and its entire solar system would be recognized as restricted territory. No council species would be allowed to enter without explicit permission. The Phantom Fleet would enforce the quarantine, with council patrol ships providing support. Any ship that violated the restriction would be turned away by force if necessary. In return, Commander Cross and his sleepers would provide limited information to the council. They would answer questions about human culture and biology. They would serve as a point of contact for any future communications. And they would ensure that Earth remained isolated until the surface humans decided they were ready for contact. Amy was selected to be the primary liaison on the council side. She would work with Cross and his crew to compile information about humans. It was the job she had always dreamed of, a chance to study a living civilization instead of dead ones. On the day the resolution took effect, Amy stood on the bridge of the Endeavor, looking at Earth on her screen. The blue and green world hung in space like a jewel. Beautiful and deadly, a cradle of life and a forge of evolution. "Do you think they will ever join us?" Captain Price asked. She stood beside Amy, watching the planet. "Eventually," Amy said. "When they are ready. Maybe in 100 years. Maybe in 1,000. But when they do come, the galaxy will never be the same. Humans will bring something we have lost. Something most species give up when they reach for the stars." "What is that?" "The ability to survive anything. To adapt to any challenge. To refuse to give up no matter how impossible the situation seems." Amy smiled. "The surface humans call themselves the children of the Deathworld. But I think there is a better name for them. They are the proof that life is stronger than death. That survival is possible, even in the worst circumstances. They are hope." The Phantom Fleet began to power down. One ship at a time, they went dark. The sleepers, their watch finally ended, allowed themselves to rest. Some would choose to remain on duty, unable to imagine any other life. Others would accept the death they had postponed for so long. But all of them did so, knowing they had succeeded. Earth survived, humanity endured, and the children of the Deathworld had proven that no challenge was too great to overcome. Commander Cross sent one final transmission before his ship went dark. It was brief, just a few words. But they carried the weight of 5 centuries of service. "Mission complete. Earth is secure. Humanity is safe. We can rest now." Amy received a message from the surface the same day. Victoria Kane had sent it personally. The words were simple but powerful. "Tell your council we remember them. Tell them we appreciate the recognition of our sovereignty. But also tell them this: we are not hiding. We are not afraid. We are simply not ready. When the children of the Deathworld walk among the stars again, we will do so as equals. We will bring with us everything we learned from surviving the impossible, and the galaxy will be better for it. Until then, we will continue to grow, to rebuild, to become what we were always meant to be. The universe waited 500 years for us. It can wait a little longer." Ambassador Foster read the message to the full council. When he finished, the chamber was silent. No one knew quite what to say. They had discovered something unprecedented, a species that had survived extinction through sheer determination. Humans who had adapted to a death world and thrived. A civilization that refused to die. "What do we do now?" the Zephrony delegate asked quietly. Speaker Venar looked at the image of Earth on the central display. "We wait. We learn. And we prepare for the day when humanity returns to the stars. Because when that day comes, the galaxy will face something it has never encountered before. A species forged in fire, tempered by survival, unbreakable in spirit. And what if they are hostile when they return? the Korthan representative asked. Then we will deal with that when it happens, Venar said. But I do not believe they will be. Humans learned the hard way that survival requires cooperation. That strength without wisdom leads only to destruction. They experienced the collapse. They saw what happens when a species turns against itself. I believe that when they return, they will come as teachers, not conquerors. They will share what they learned. How to survive anything. How to endure when all hope seems lost. Amy returned to her laboratory that night. She had years of work ahead of her. The data from Earth was extensive. Records of 5 centuries of adaptation. Stories of survival, against impossible odds. The evolution of a species in real time. It was more than one person could study in a lifetime, but she was not alone. Commander Cross had promised to help. The sleepers would share their knowledge. And perhaps, in time, the surface humans would as well. The children of the Deathworld had stories to tell, lessons to teach, and the galaxy needed to learn them, because Earth had proven something fundamental. Life was not fragile. It was resilient. It could adapt to anything, survive anything, overcome anything, and humanity, born from a world that tried its best to kill them, had become the ultimate proof of that truth. The galaxy would never forget the day it discovered Earth, the day it learned that humans were not extinct, the day it realized that somewhere in the darkness of space, on a world more hostile than any other, humanity endured. And somewhere on that distant Deathworld, Victoria Kane stood at the edge of the jungle and looked up at the stars. Waiting. Growing stronger. Preparing for the day when the children of the Deathworld would walk among them again. That day would come. And when it did, the universe would never be the same. Don't in ways that would take years to fully understand. What about the sleepers? Price asked. The fleet in orbit? Victoria's expression softened slightly. It was the first real emotion Amy had seen from her. Tell them their watch is over. Tell them to rest. They have protected us long enough. We can protect ourselves now. And perhaps, someday, we will protect them. The interview continued for another hour. Amy downloaded as much data as she could. Victoria answered their questions patiently. Though Amy could sense her growing tired of explaining basic things, to Victoria, this was just life. To the visitors, it was impossible. Finally, Victoria stood. You must leave now. The storms are getting worse. Your craft will not survive if you wait much longer. Take your data. Tell your council about us. But also tell them this. Earth is ours. The children of the Deathworld do not welcome colonization. Do not welcome exploitation. We survived alone. We will continue alone until we decide otherwise. As they walked back to the landing craft, Amy looked back at Victoria and her people. They stood at the edge of the jungle, watching. Powerful, confident, unafraid, they were the proof that humanity could survive anything. That life always found a way. The landing craft lifted off. As they climbed through the atmosphere, fighting the storms and the gravity, Amy began writing her report. The galaxy needed to know. Humans had survived, and they had become something extraordinary that would shape the future of human and alien relations. And it all depended on what happened next. I need to see them, Amy said suddenly. The humans on the surface. I need to meet them, to understand what they've become. Cross looked at her for a long time. Then he nodded. Very well. I will give you coordinates to one of their settlements. But I warn you, once you go down there, you will see things that will change how you view humanity forever. Are you prepared for that? Amy thought about all her years of study, all the dead civilizations she had explored, all the extinct species she had researched. And now she had a chance to meet living humans, to see what a species could become when pushed to its absolute limits. Yes, she said. I'm prepared. This could be a trap, Admiral Hayes warned. Or it could be our only chance to learn the truth, Amy replied. I'm going, Foster nodded. So am I. They chose 3 others to join them. Captain Price, who had volunteered to come on this mission. a security officer named Greg Walsh, and a medical specialist named Claire Stevens. The five of them gathered in the airlock, wearing environmental suits just in case. As they crossed from the Accord to the Phantom ship, Amy's heart was pounding. She was about to meet humans. Real humans. Beings from a species that everyone thought was dead. Whatever she found on the other side of that corridor would change everything she thought she knew about the galaxy. But what if they didn't disappear? What if they came here? Elena looked at the planet on her screen. The deadly, beautiful world that would kill any normal species. The world that someone had built a fleet to protect. The world that still held secrets in its storms and oceans. If humans are down there, she said slowly, if they survived on that Deathworld for 500 years, then we need to know about it. The entire galaxy needs to know. The communication system crackled again. The voice returned, asking a question in that strange, harsh language. Jake's computer worked to translate. It's asking us to identify ourselves, Jake said. It wants to know why we disturbed their vigil. Elena straightened in her chair. Whatever happened next would change everything. She could feel it. The Phantom fleet waited for her answer, and somewhere below them, on a world too dangerous for any sane species to inhabit, something watched and waited too. She began to speak.